Hello everyone, I'm Vishal Salsekar and today we are going to cover the News Today articles for 31st of January. So in today's discussion, we are going to cover 5 important articles in detail. The first article is regarding the digital addiction crisis in India. So basically when we are talking about an digital era, in that particular digital era, there are a lot of complications, lot of issues that are also going to emerge. One such issue is the digital addiction. So the digital aspects or the digital facilitation is a very important tool that is also going to help us in a lot of situations, but that is also creating certain type of issues, and digital addiction is one such issue along with the mental health related crisis. So we are going to talk about what are the issues pertaining to this. The next article is regarding the menstrual health as a fundamental right. So recently the Supreme Court has highlighted that the menstrual health is also part of Article 21. So when UPSC is focusing upon multiple interpretation of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, now the menstrual health is also becoming the part of that, and that's how the interpretation can be asked in the form of the UPSC means question. The next important article is regarding the female labor force participation in India. So we have seen that generally women were considered as or typically attached to certain form of tasks which are generally considered as a task of caregiver. But when we talk about specifically their participation in the labor force, in that specific sense, generally the non-paid type of works are attached to them, and that's how the percentage is not actually reflecting the true picture. So now the government has focused upon certain aspects, and now they are also projecting that the participation of female as far as the labor force is going to get increased, and substantially in roughly 8 years time period there has been substantial increase also. So we are going to talk about what exactly we mean by these particular terms, and along with that what is the current statistics regarding this. The next article is regarding the stem cell therapy. So we are going to talk about what exactly is the stem cell therapy and why we have to discuss about this particular therapy right now. What are the issues or the ethical aspects associated with this? The last article that we are going to cover in detail is regarding the roadmap to 100 gigawatt of the hydro pumped storage projects. So we will talk about what these type of projects are exactly and how they are different from the hydropower project, and what are the issues right now that these particular projects are facing in India. So we will talk about all these articles along with the needed details, and then there are certain other quick updates that we are going to talk about in detail. So let's start the discussion with the very first article regarding the issues that are being highlighted by the Economic Survey of India regarding the digital addiction. So the Economic Survey flags the digital addiction crisis and the rising mental health problem because both are interrelated. If you are talking about too much digital aspects, or if you are going to go for the entire succumbing into the aspects of the digital domain, then in that particular cases there are very high chances that eventually you will be feeling the stress, anxiety, and a lot of issues are going to be followed to this. And hence there is a need in order to ensure a holistic solution regarding this. So from the perspective of UPSC examination GS paper 2, jahan par from the perspective of social issues like the mental health, it is a very important aspect of health, and then GS paper 3 inclusive growth and the human capital, it is a very important aspect. So let's have a discussion regarding this. So first let's try to understand that what exactly is digital addiction. So when we are talking about, let's say you are consuming a lot of content in the online mode, whether it is the Instagram post or maybe the Instagram related reels that you are scrolling, or maybe the YouTube shorts, this particular type of doom scrolling is going to ensure that you will be eventually being trapped into that particular doom scrolling wala aspect, and that will be ensuring that you will be having a constant stress. So there will be a persistent, excessive and obsessive computer or the online utilization. It's not necessarily that you are always utilizing these particular tools by your choice. Sometimes it becomes an addiction for you, and that becomes a stress reliever, but then eventually you are getting trapped into that specific aspect, and that is causing the further stress, anxiety, and even you will be feeling in the isolation, right? So that is going to cause the psychological distress, along with that the functional impairment. You will feel like that, yes, right now whatever type of things that are going on in your surrounding, all of these thoughts are going to create a lot of chaos in your mind, and that will eventually cause a lot of issues. So talking about the impact of the digital addiction. So what impact actually it puts? The first is regarding the mental health deterioration. So when we are talking about the digital addiction, it is going to impact a lot with respect to the mental health. Whether you talk about the low self-esteem, you generally keep on overthinking on a lot of things, and that's going to impact. Apart from that, the cyberbullying and the stress. Because many a time what happens whenever you are consuming the content in the online mode in any specific manner, in that cases there are chances of the cyberbullying also. You might be also trapped by the cyber or the digital frauds, right? So that is also one such issue. Apart from that, whenever you are consuming a lot of games in the online mode, there are very high chances that the behavior also turn into the addiction, or behavior also turns into some form of like aggression towards the other people also, and then eventually you will try to cut yourself from the social interaction. So that is going to increase further isolation related aspects. Second, talking about the cognitive and the academic decline. Obviously it is going to happen that when you are consuming a lot of digital content, and that might not be that much productive, so what you are doing, eventually you are spending a lot of time over there. There will be piling up of the stress, piling up of the anxiety, and that particular stress and anxiety ultimately resulted into the sleep deprivation. And when there will be sleep deprivation, eventually you will not be able to focus a lot on the things that you should be focusing upon, and that is going to reduce your focus, and obviously it is going to impact the academic performance also. Talking about the erosion of the social capital, when you are going to consume a lot of digital content, what you are going to do, you are going to cut off your social interaction. You will not going to go out, you are not going to meet with a friend. What you are going to do, you are eventually going to get yourself trapped with that digital files, and in that particular context the community participation is going to get reduced. It also diminishes whatever offline skills that are there, even including the public interactions. Lastly, talking about the physical and the financial harms. So the physical health, obviously you know that eventually it is going to impact your eyes, it is going to impact your physique, and eventually it is also going to impact your mental health related scenarios. Apart from that, financial aspects also, because a lot of digital scams like the digi arrest or the digital arrest that you might be hearing also, and all these things are going to impact the individual entirely, and that's why there are digital de-addiction that is also being talked about these days. Now, what are the reasons behind rising digital addiction in India? So the survey highlights certain important aspects. The first is regarding ubiquitous access of the internet or the digital medias like the smartphone. So roughly internet connections are available to 97 crore people, and that is the data of 2024. This has further increased, and apart from that, 85% plus people are using the smartphone. So that means roughly each and every individual is having the access of the digital footprint, and that is going to increase the digital addiction also. Talking about the high stimulus platform, so basically what happens that there are certain stimulus, external or internal, that are being provided to you in order to consume more the digital content. So let's say there are Netflix, there may be Amazon Prime, or maybe any other type of OTT platform. They give certain lucrative offers to you, like they will be showing certain type of highlights of that particular, let's say, web series or any of the OTT content, and then you will be curious to know that what is actually happening in that, and they are ensuring that you are going to do the binge watch. Means in one go only you are going to spend the entire time on that particular web series, and eventually you are going to cut yourself for that time period with the external world. Talking about the digital environment, so digital environment is also one such responsible factor, because see, already a lot of things right now are going on in the digital mode. Even right now you are watching me, that is also through the digital mode. So it is definitely going to be a facilitator, but then once the facilitator becomes an addiction, that becomes a major issue. So that intensely digital environment sometimes creates the mental chaos also, and that prevent the external engagements. Talking about the instant gratification, because sometimes see, these apps are based upon the algorithm. So suppose if you are finding certain type of videos or liking certain type of videos, now the next onwards all the type of videos that will be showing that only in the higher intensity. That means they are catching the algorithm, they are finding that what you exactly like. So in that particular cases, the chances are very high that they are giving you mental intensely gratified, like you will be feeling happy after watching or consuming that particular content, and that is going to ensure that you will be going in the doom scroll mode. Lastly, talking about the peer influence, then the social validation, that sometimes suppose somebody is saying that have you watched that reel. So basically what it is doing, that if you have not watched, that means you are not that much aware regarding what is going on in the society. To escape the real world issues like the loneliness and stress, sometimes we intentionally keep on doing, and then that intentional aspects become an unintentional, and we keep on scrolling the social media. Now, what are the way forward in this particular regard? Once you are getting trapped in these type of digital addiction, and I am very sure that most of you might be facing this particular issue, so there are a lot of things that the entirely society or as a state we have to ensure. First is regarding the school education. So there should be a wellness curriculum. That means it's not necessary that if you are looking fine or maybe physically fit, then you might not be facing the mental stress or mental issues. So there should be the digital wellness curriculum that should be the part of the school curricula, or maybe at the time period of, let's say, whenever you are doing the graduation. So that should be part of that. That will ensure that whatever you are doing, you are happy from inside. Talking about the parental and the family role. So there should be, like, if you have to cut out on food, you are doing the diet in general. So there has to be a digital diets also. That means certain time period you should be completely shutting down whatever device you are using, or cutting off yourself from the digital media in order to just feel your internal self. Talking about the platform accountability. Suppose karo, if as an individual that platform must be used by only those are, let's say, 12 plus or maybe 18 plus. So in that cases, if a user is able to access that particular platform without going through the thorough investigation regarding this, don't you think so there is also a platform accountability? So that is also one such thing. Talking about the data and the metric related thing. So there is a need to ensure that there should be a proper screen time. Sometime you might be having the notification that today you have utilized this particular device for this much amount of time. This is your weekly data. So through this analytics, you will be able to know that where you are going actually, whether you are consuming more or less, right? So this data and metrics are very, very important. Lastly, the community support. There should be certain zone, let's say the recreational hubs, there are parks, there are different community center that are going to ensure that you will be connected to the society. It's not like that you are just going in the doom scroll mode and you are completely getting disconnected with the entire social aspect. So that should be there. So its social aspect should not only be the social media, it should be the social gathering that you should be part of. Offline youth hub. These are very, very important aspects in order to ensure the digital de-addiction. Now see, UPSC keep on asking regarding the current trend. UPSC had asked the question regarding how the child cuddling is being replaced by mobile phone. So they can ask regarding the digital addiction also. So basically, to enhance the prospects of the social development, sound and adequate healthcare policies are needed, particularly in the field of geriatric and the maternal. Now they had asked that. Now they can ask also regarding the mental health. Then also these points will be validated, or these points will be useful for you. Apart from that, if the digital addiction or de-addiction related aspects are being asked in the answer, so that also can be part of this, right? Next particular article that we are going to talk about is the Supreme Court's observation. So Supreme Court has observed that the menstrual health in the school is integral to the right to life. Because see, ultimately it is part of the right to life, Article 21, and also it is part of the Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, which talks about the right to equality. And when we are talking about equality, suppose karo, if the male counterpart is able to access the school infrastructure in that manner, and due to the menstrual issues, if the women are not able to access that particular infrastructure, don't you think so? It is going to impact the equality related aspects, and that's why it is very, very important. So GS paper 2, fundamental rights related aspects, specifically Article 21, it is important. And apart from that, welfare scheme for the women. Along with that, GS paper 1, role of women and the gender issues related aspects also can be asked by UPSC. Now, what is the exact context? That recently there has been the national policy regarding the education, and there the menstrual hygiene related aspects are there, and these particular policy guidelines are there, but many of the places they are not being applied yet. Many of the places where there is no segregation between the men's toilet and the women's toilet. Many such places where there are no such availability of the things that are basically needed, like the sanitary pads at the school level. So all these things are part of the guidelines, but they are eventually not becoming the part of the reality. And that's why the Supreme Court had observed that now this is part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Now, what are the key highlights of this particular observation? Firstly, regarding the menstrual health as a fundamental right. Now, it is part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. That means it is under the definition of now in the form of right to life. So it has increased in the form of its scope. It gives more advantage. It gives more idea that it need to be implemented at the countrywide level. Talking about linking it to Article 14, because if the male counterpart is able to access the school premises, and because of the menstrual hygiene related issues, if the women are not able to access those things, then it is infringing upon Article 14, and that's why it is important. Talking about the dignity of girl child, because see, eventually because of certain type of issues or the menstrual hygiene related aspects, if the women or the girl child is not able to access the premises, or apart from that, if they are facing, let's say, harassment or maybe mocking of certain type of things, in that cases, don't you think so that dignity of the girl child is getting hurt, and that is also a punishable aspect. Talking about the structural discrimination, because see, already there is Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, 21A. This 21A talks about the right to education. Along with that, there are RT related act that is there. There is new education policy. So all these things are talking about that we need to remove the structural type of discrimination that is already there. So in all these cases, we have to ensure that whatever structural issues pertaining to that, whether it is infrastructure, whether it is mindset, whether it is behavioral change, or whether it is any other type of sensitization that is needed, including the menstrual health management related aspects. Lastly, the mandatory institutional measures. So in schools, there should be separate toilets for the men and women. There should be availability of the vending machine for the sanitary napkins. Apart from that, there should be other aspects. Let's say there may be the provision for certain other things, maybe the clothing and other aspects that should be available in the schools. So all these things are being highlighted by the Supreme Court. Now, what are the initiatives that are already being taken in this particular regard? So the government has already taken certain proactive steps regarding this, like the scheme for promotion of the menstrual health, which is basically talking about the awareness generation, which is also talking about the enhancing of the sanitary napkins ka access to the people who are generally not able to access this. Apart from that, eco-friendly disposal practices like the incineration, right? So all these things are talking about that this is going to promote the menstrual health. Talking about the national guideline on the menstrual health management. So this is also part of the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, where specifically in the rural areas, the awareness generation is being done through the national guidelines, or regarding the national guidelines about the menstrual health. Talking about Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana, that talks about the access to the sanitary pads or the sanitary napkin, like the Suvidha, which is basically oxy-biodegradable sanitary pads that are available at a cheaper cost. That means the access can be increased among the masses. Talking about other initiatives which are basically for the awareness generation, like the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao, which is for the awareness generation, means regarding the girl child that should not be appearing as in any form of or at any point of time as a burden, right? So conventionally, generally, when we were thinking about this, so that has to be removed, and that's why the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao type of schemes are also functioning in the awareness generation. Lastly, the Samagra Shiksha scheme, which is talking about again the similar aspects like the installation of the vending machine for the sanitary napkins, and along with that also the incinerators, which is also ensuring the disposal in a environment friendly or eco-friendly manner, right? So these all things are regarding the initiatives. Now the question that UPSC had asked, what are the continued challenges for the women in India against the time and space? This is an old question, but now UPSC can also ask the question regarding any aspects of women, and in any way one such thing that the women faces difficulties regarding the menstrual health related aspects. So these pointers will be valid for majority of the question that UPSC is going to ask regarding the disadvantages in the society that women are facing. The next article again highlighting regarding the economic survey. So economic survey 25-26 urges the policy action to increase the women's labor force participation. So when economic survey has highlighted certain type of data, obviously it becomes important from your examination perspective, and along with that specifically in the GS paper 3 economy, it is going to be very, very important. Along with that, wherever the women related aspects are there in GS paper 1, you can relate. So GS paper 1, role of women, gender issues, social empowerment. GS paper 2, it is there. Even GS paper 3, jahan par you can talk about the labor force participation related aspects, right? Now, what is the context specifically? That the study or the survey of economic survey that has highlighted that the female labor force participation is on the rise. If we compare it from 16-17 to roughly 24-25, this has increased substantially, and this year it is roughly around, let's say 40% ke around hai. But the target is that roughly by 2050 it is going to be around 55%. That means if there will be roughly equal or more participation of women as far as the employment related aspects are concerned. Don't you think so? It is going to also improve upon the economic aspects, also improve upon the growth related aspects, and that itself is going to increase the GDP of the country. So the GDP growth trajectory is also going to get increased, right? Now, what is the present status of the female labor force participation in India? So there is a rising rate, that means 23.3% to 17-18 ke around, and this has increased to roughly 41.7% in 23-24. That means if we are talking about the present data, we can assume that roughly 42k around percentage hai, and that is expected to increase further by 2050, and the percentage is roughly 55%. That means more women are going to take participation in the employment. Now, talking about the entrepreneurship, in that sense also the women ka improvement has been observed. So the female headed proprietary establishments have increased significantly. Apart from that, there has been increase in like 24.2% tha 2021-22 mein, and it has increased to 26% roughly in 23-24. Within roughly a span of 1.5 years, there has been substantial improvement. That shows that there is a rising of the women labor force participation, whether it is the conventional work sector or maybe the entrepreneurship related aspects. But does that tell that everything is good with respect to the female labor force participation? Obviously no, because women faces a lot of barrier when it comes to the labor force participation. Talking about first issue is the dual work burden. Still, you will also be able to observe at your household or maybe in your surrounding that generally it is the women who are expected to work more as the unpaid labor. So there is a data talking from the time use survey of 2024 that highlights that roughly women contribute more than 3 times as far as the unpaid work is concerned as compared to the men. So if we talk about the women's average time, 363 minutes per day. On the other hand, men's, it is roughly 123 minutes. That means roughly 3 times in that particular sense. Talking about another issue, the another issue is regarding the pink tax related to the mobility. That means, suppose karo, see, if you are an individual who is like from the male community, so obviously there are high chances that you will be able to take, let's say if I give you a very common example, you will be comfortably take the Uber bikes or maybe the Ola bikes or maybe Rapido, any other. Maybe you will be feeling safe in order to go for the public transportation also. But just assume a scenario in the night time. Will it be that much safe for a woman, or women is going to choose that? Obviously no. So in that particular cases, they have to go for the higher cost wala modes. Are they doing it willingly? Many of them might not be, but then they are not having any other choice. So what issue it is doing? It is putting a pink tax. It is putting a tax on them. That means now they have to go for the higher cost wala mode of transportation, and that increases the cost of transportation, eventually reduces the incentives. And the World Bank study also talks about that roughly 31% of the women cited commuting as a one prominent issue. Talking about the structural barriers, obviously these are also there, like the limited and the affordable housing. This is one such issue. And the inflexible work arrangement, that means if it is strictly talking about the inflexibility, or if it is strictly related to certain set of hours, maybe a chance that because of certain issues, like in the last article we had talked about the menstrual health. So for many of the reason there may be delay, and in that particular cases there may be issues, and that's why sometimes women also leave the jobs. Lastly, talking about the skill and education gap. So though we are talking about that roughly we are coming at parity, jahan par women are also getting the equal opportunities, they are also taking participation in the education and the other things. But still there are certain issues. Still there are perception that the STEM, which is basically science and technology, engineering, mathematics related field, they are the male dominated one, like the upper or the higher graduation related aspects. So in those cases, generally the women are still lesser, and that's how that is not reflected that much in the employment related sectors, and that's how there are issues, right? Now, talking about what may be the steps that can be taken in order to increase the female labor force participation rate. First is regarding the care infrastructure, because many of the women after, let's say, marriage or maybe after the childbirth, they are not able to go for the employment or the work related aspects. That's why expanding the Anganwadi and the community crash, formalizing the care work, all these things are going to increase their participation in the employment. Apart from that, the safe urban mobility, last mile connectivity, like even after the metro, if the metro is available, there should be the last mile connectivity which is also safe. There should be community policing, that is there, women centric policing is there, gender sensitive transport system, that should be there. All these things and more over above, we need to change the thought process, right? So that is also very, very important. Innovative and the partnership based model, like the Telangana's women hub connects the women with the startup ecosystem and the investors. Talking about the workplace reform, so there has to be need for reform, like the hybrid work system, right? So there should be sometime it is work from home, sometime it is work from office, along with that equal pay, which is going to incentivize them. Strong harassment related safeguards, like sometime many a time it is the scenario that the internal committees रहती हैं, those particular committees regarding the sexual harassment of women at the workplace, there are internal complaints committee, they are not being even formulated by the organizations, right? Talking about certain other issues like the gender sensitization is there in the schools, then the shared domestic responsibility related aspects, then affordable housing, because many a time women are not exactly living near the workplace, so sometimes they have to take even the accommodation. So if those accommodations are not easily available and not safe for the women to reside, obviously it is going to impact a lot. So that's why all these things are important in order to ensure the more female labor force participation. Clear? Okay. So next article that we have to talk about regarding that, the Supreme Court again observed one thing, that the use of stem cells to treat the autism is unethical. So as of now, what as per the guidelines that is allowed, and National Medical Commission or different other type of guidelines talk about that the blood related disorders के लिए it is being allowed, the stem cell therapy. But other than that, still it is in the testing phase, it is not yet fully certified, and that's why it is not being allowed. And that's why Supreme Court had said कि भाई it is right now not ethical to treat autism with the stem cell therapy. So again, from the perspective of the UPSC GS paper 2, where the judiciary and the judicial activism, it is important aspect. Along with that, the fundamental rights, right to get treatment is also fundamental right. So it is going to do a conflict. Apart from that, GS paper 3, science and technology, and along with that, even if you relate it with GS 4, वहाँ पर ethical issues वाला aspect is also a important thing. Now, what is the context? So Supreme Court has right now categorically barred the medical practitioner, that suppose karo if you are facing difficulty like autism, and if you go to the medical practitioners and ask कि भाई देखो, I want the stem cell therapy, I am giving my consent, you have to perform the stem cell therapy and remove this autism related disorder. Now, as a doctor, maybe a chance that, see, if I have given the consent, that means you should be doing that thing. But then Supreme Court had said no, because it's not like if the patient is saying something, you have to do. There are certain established framework. If that is not still part of that, in that case, you need not to perform that. And that's why they have barred the practitioner from offering the stem cell therapy as a treatment for the autism spectrum disorder, ASD. So what exactly autism spectrum disorder? Is it a blood disorder? No, it is a neurological and the developmental disorder, which creates the issue with the development, right? So basically it is not related to the things which are related to the blood disorder, and that's why it is not yet allowed in this. Now, what exactly is the stem cell therapy? So basically in the stem cell therapy, it is basically either found in the embryo or maybe in the adult cell. Adult cell may be the bone marrow, maybe in the blood cells, maybe in the other type of bodily tissues. These particular stem cells are available. So what are the stem cells? These are basically special type of the cells, either extracted from the embryo or maybe extracted from the adult cell, which may be the skins, which may be the blood cell, which may be the bone marrow. Now it can turn into different type of cells, and ability to self-renewal. Let's say if you want to grow certain things, so in that particular case, the stem cell therapy can be utilizable. Now, what are generally the standardized application as of now? First, it is regarding whether it is leukemia, whether it is lymphoma, or maybe the Parkinson's disease. These are generally the blood-related disorders, right? In that particular cases, as of now, the standardized application is allowed. So ICMR ne in 2021, they have allowed the utilization of the stem cell therapy for the hematological disorders, means those disorders which are there because of the blood related disorder, either because of the less or the lack of development of the proper blood cells, or maybe in case of the rare disorder. So it enables the tissue regeneration, it ensures the targeted treatment, and sometimes the potential other type of cures that may be provided due to the stem cell therapy. Now, talking about what are the ethical issues that are involved in that. So if anything is providing treatment, why the Supreme Court is saying that it is unethical? The reason simply here is, first, there is issue with the proof of efficacy, that it is still not proved that it can be ensured as 100% result, or it is going to ensure the success in that. That's why there is no proven safety or the efficacy that is available, and also it is not yet approved by the ICMR, which is the Indian Council of Medical Research, and the National Medical Commission. So if it is not still recognized by that, or it is still not approved by that, so obviously there are very high chances that the medical practitioners might not be obviously confident about performing these type of practices. But suppose if one is performing this just in order to get the money, then in that particular case that has not to be done. Talking about the unethical and commercial use, so right now it is for the clinical trials only this is allowed. It is not allowed for the commercial use. So if violates the standards or the ethical standards which are set for this, like the Bolam test. Bolam test says ki bhai dekho, even if you are denying someone because there are no practical standards set for this, and this is going against the medical ethics, you can deny also. The responsibility will not lie on you. So in that particular cases, the unethical things you need not to do in the medical practices. Consent is not absolute, the third important aspect. So the Supreme Court has highlighted the consent thing is not absolute. It's not like if the patient is saying do this type of surgery on me, if it is unethical, obviously the one who is the patient, he is not basically responsible for everything. As a doctor, you are also equally responsible. That's why the patient's autonomy is there under Article 21, but this does not extend to what therapy they want to do. As a medical practitioner, you have to decide those things, and unsafe and unproven therapies have not to be performed. Talking about the research only permission, so as of now the stem cell therapy is allowed mainly in the research related aspects, and even allowed in the hematological disorders, and not in these particular cases. Lastly, the professional misconduct. So these things which are going against the ethical aspects, if these are being performed, these are against the National Medical Commission ka conducts. Whatever things are being provided, and it is mentioned as unethical, right? So these are the issues. Now talking about, we have talked about that stem cells, right? It can regrow the cells, right? So basically there are multiple type of cells depending upon from where they are getting extracted. If they are being extracted from embryo, they are known as the embryonic stem cells, and that can be developed in any other type of the cells ka set if they are being adult, and this is just after the birth, these particular type of embryonic stem cells are being extracted. Now adult blood stem cells, these particular stem cells or the adult stem cells, these stem cells being later on extracted, maybe from your bone marrow, maybe from your, let's say, the blood tissues, or maybe the skin tissues, or maybe any other type of tissues, right? So embryonic stem cells can be converted into any type of stem cells. The adult stem cells can be converted into some specific set of cells. So embryonic stem cells, also sometimes known as the pluripotent, it can be converted into any other type of cells. The adult blood cells can be converted into limited type of cells later on, so it is multipotent. And then there are certain specialized type of cells which are basically there in order to grow a specific set of cells only. They are the specialized type of cells, right? Now last article is regarding the roadmap to 100 gigawatt of the hydro pumped storage project by 2035-36. So these are the hydro pumped storage project. Do not get confused with the hydro power project in general, right? So from the perspective of UPSC GS paper 3 infrastructure energy, and in energy also sustainable form of energy, this particular development will be counted as. Next is in government policies and intervention, GS paper 2. This is also important. Now what is the context? That recently the Central Electricity Authority CEA has recognized that the role of the power project, which are the pump storage power projects, these particular projects are very, very important, and they are different from the hydroelectricity project in general, right? And that's why in order to ensure the clean energy transition, there is a need to increase the number of these type of projects. Now what this provides ki bhai, first of all, that whatever energy we are generating, that is utilized in a correct direction, and then whenever we are in the need for the energy later on, we can extract that particular energy. I'll tell you how. Now what is the hydro pump storage project? So generally hota kya hai, let's say there are two type of reservoirs that are being created, one at a lower height, another at a higher height. Now there will be obviously a turbine mechanism in between that. So generally hota kya hai, that suppose karo you are developing a lot of renewable energy, but that renewable energy is not being stored because of obviously the storage issues might be limited, storage things might be limited, and that's why the issues might be there. So what you are going to do, whenever the excess energy is being generated and you are not able to store, what you can do, you can pump the water to the higher reservoir. That means you are storing the energy at a higher level. When the energy is or the electricity is available and that is getting wasted, so you can utilize the energy or electricity in order to pump the water at a higher level. And then later on what you are going to do, whenever you will need or there will be a peak demand, you will be throwing the water from above, like you will allow the water to flow and that will move the turbine and eventually will generate electricity. That means when the excess electricity is there, you are sending the water above, and then eventually later on once you are in the need for the electricity or energy, you will be extracting that energy from the higher level. That means the hydroelectric energy storage system, it will act like a battery. Whenever you will need, there is a peak demand, you can get it by releasing the stored water downwards. Talking about the potential and status, because UPSC questions may, if you are going to give certain data, it is going to impact a lot. So currently installed around it is 7 gigawatt, which is comparatively lesser, but the target is very, very high, and also the potential is also very high. So the storage potential is roughly 267 gigawatt. See, here one thing you can observe, that for this there is a no need to ensure that every time there should be a running river. It will basically need one reservoir at a lower level, another reservoir at a higher level. That's it. Not necessarily that there should be a running river. That's why roughly 267 gigawatt hai. On stream it is roughly 58, but then off stream, which is beyond the river or the lakes, it is roughly 209 gigawatt. That means artificially also it can be created at the larger scale. Talking about the open loop which are connected to the natural water, means jahan pe actually there is water that is coming, and then you can pump the water at the other side and then you can again get the electricity through the water. Closed loop mein there is no connection with the natural resources, entirely it is being developed artificially, right? So this is regarding the pump storage, pump related hydropower storage, right? Now talking about what are the issues and the recommendation regarding this, because see, generally what happens, that these are considered as similar to the hydroelectric project. Now when they are related with the hydroelectric project, all the type of compulsions, all the type of licensing requirement, all the type of provisioning, that has to be done in a similar manner, but then this is having much higher or larger potential. That's why there are certain issues and the solutions are provided. First issue is the lengthy clearance due to the parity with the conventional hydropower. So in that particular case, what we can do, we can create a specialized category for these type of pump storage hydroelectricity project, and this particular type of project ke liye there can be separate guidelines. This can be separated from the conventional hydroelectricity project, and that's how the licensing and the other type of clearances can be done at a faster rate, right? So the potential can be ultimately resulted into reality. Then the blanket ban in the eco-sensitive zone and the 10-kilometer buffer. So for these type of project, there can be relaxation on this, because these are not diverting that much the nearby जो ecosystem है उसको ज़्यादा divert नहीं कर रहा है. Along with that, within 10-kilometer area distance from the protected areas where the ESZ are yet not notified. So there should be allowance of these. Along with the delay in the stage 2 forest clearances, so streamline the forest clearance process. So there should be a proper communication between the central level, state level and the power project, those who are developing at that particular level. Then the lack of the land for the compensatory afforestation. Many a time the issue is there ki where you can utilize, if you are diverting the forest, you have to do the compensatory afforestation. So in that particular case, the degraded forest land can be utilized, and along with that the government can facilitate further land which is available. There the forestation can be done, and along with that there should be a national land bank that generally we are talking about, that the land can be diverted from these type of land bank, and there should be a proper monitoring, which is also going to be a GIS based monitoring, in order to observe that if there are any degraded forest, are they getting regenerated. Then the high capital cost, so there should be obviously PPP, there may be the viability gap funding, or maybe any other type of mechanism that can be brought in. Lastly, the strict Western Ghat related norms. So those particular relaxations can be provided to the other areas, and specifically jahan par similar type of conditions based upon the need, there can be utilization of the norms and guidelines. So there is obviously need to check on the case to case basis, and based upon that only there should be idea regarding this. So this is regarding the pumped hydroelectricity projects, right? Now, having discussed about this, now let's talk about certain quick updates. So first in this quick update is regarding the village commons. So basically village commons are simply those particular land which is available in the village regions which is commonly being accessed. Maybe the pasture land, maybe the land which is the commonly being utilized as a community land. So the center is right now considering to recognize the village commons as a distinct land use category, because hota kya hai ki generally this particular type of land is not being categorized in a specific category, and that's how we are not getting the true data. That's why the community managed common property जो है, the resources such as the grazing land, ponds, forests, these should be categorized as a separate land use category. What it will do, it will ensure that the monitoring and the data related gathering will be proper. So collectively it is being utilized for livelihood, biodiversity conservation, ecosystem services. Now talking about how much area it is covering, roughly 15% of the geographical area of India is roughly these type of common land. Now talking about what are the issues that are being faced over here, generally what you see that there is encroachment of these particular regions, right? Other than encroachment, there are also the misuse. Sometimes the land is being diverted. So all these particular things can be prevented if the land is getting recognized as a village common. Next is regarding the new country partnership framework, NCPF, right? So basically an NCPF, new country partnership framework 2026-31 has been signed between India and the World Bank, and roughly the provision of $8 to $10 billion is a part of that. So what it is going to do, it is going to incorporate the private sector in order to boost the employment generation. So prioritize the private sector led job creation. It will do upgrading of the skills. It will reduce the barrier. It will promote the MSMEs. So it will do the development related support. It is going to ensure the skill development. It is going to ensure the urban development, rural development, and along with that employment generation, right? Now, what are going to be the strategic outcome out of this? So the first is regarding the rural prosperity ko increase karega and resilience. That's how the rural areas are going to grow. Then similar thing regarding urban transformation, then investing in the people, skill development, development of the entrepreneurship abilities, and lastly the strengthening of the energy security, because entire ecosystem has to be improved. So in energy security, core infrastructure, climate resilience, all these things are going to be the part of new country partnership framework. किसके साथ sign किया है? With the World Bank. Next is regarding the green ATM. Simply what you know that ATM is the machine which is there for dispensing of the cash. Once you are putting your card, it is recognizing you. There will be certain authentication, and based upon that the cash will be provided to you. Similarly, this is for the grain. So Bihar is setting up the grain ATM to smoothen the ration delivery. So generally you might have seen there are long queues outside those particular PDS shops, and if there are grain ATMs, by recognizing you, by having your identity validated, now what is your quota of grain you can get, and these particular machines can prevent any of the type of diversion. So automated machine that can dispense the food grain, rice, wheat, or whatever it is, right? So according to the World Food Program, already there were certain experiments like in Odisha, and there it was observed कि भाई roughly 70% of the time that is getting reduced because of this. And in that particular case, the collaboration obviously has to be done with the FCI, the Food Corporation of India, and along with that various state government, because these are the ground level where actual grain related aspects are being done. Availability of the grain and the facilitation is being done by the state. Now enhancing the food security, faster, transparent, dignified, and also preventing the leakage also, right? So leak proof delivery of the food grain. Next is the new Ramsar site. So generally देखो, now there are roughly 98 Ramsar sites in India. Obviously it is practically impossible to mug up each and every one. So if there is any new designated, just have a few details about that, where they are located, if there is any famous aspect regarding this. Generally UPSC concerns about that, and along with that if there is any famous one which are there in news because of some issues, then in that particular case. So Union Environment Minister announces 2 new wetlands to the India's Ramsar site. What are those particular wetlands? First is Patna Bird Sanctuary. Do not get confused that it is in Bihar. It is in the Uttar Pradesh, Etah district of Uttar Pradesh. It is the smallest bird sanctuary in Uttar Pradesh and is famous for certain aquatic birds, right? Along with that, there is Charidand Wetland Reserve. It is in Kutch region of Gujarat. So it is near the Banni grassland. Now regarding Banni grassland, UPSC had already asked the question. UPSC had asked the question regarding Kharai camel. UPSC had asked the question regarding Chirbatti, which is the type of ghost light which are visible in the Banni grassland. So they can ask the question regarding this. Now what is the Charidand? Char means salt and Dand means basically the shallow water. So Charidand is basically the salty shallow wetland, right? So this is situated in Gujarat. So one in Uttar Pradesh and another in Gujarat. Next is regarding Kavach 4.0. So Indian Railways has speeded up the development of the Kavach 4.0 safety rollout. These are the safety guidelines. These are basically the safety equipments or the safety related tools that are available that will prevent any future collisions, right? So they are the latest and the most advanced iteration of the India's indigenous automatic train protection system. So it is a comprehensive set of system which includes obviously certain guidelines, also certain type of technological equipment, certain other type of tools which are ensuring the prevention of the collision or derailment or even the route related issues if there are any happening, right? So integrates the microprocessors, global positioning system and radio communication technologies. Basically they have to ensure the navigation without having any diversion, and that's why they are very important. It provides the automatic protection against the signal passing at the danger, prevents the collision. Generally you are knowing that already when we are in the winter months, the fog is very high during certain point of time and there are chances of the collision, and that's why these are important in order to prevent these situations. It monitor and control the overspeeding, generates the alert, and also the most stringent security and safety standards SIL4. These safety standards are also being met by this Kavach 4.0. That means it is one of the most foolproof. 99.99% it is safe, right? Next is regarding the Helix Nebula. So James Webb Space Telescope, which is a prominent telescope for the observing the space-based activities, that has captured the Helix Nebula. Now, what exactly is the nebula? So basically, it is a huge cloud of the gases and dust, jahan se many a time it is observed that the new stars are getting generated. So this is the space where the dust and the other particles are filled and they are getting condensed later on, and they give birth to the stars and planets also. So it helps scientists in understanding how the stars which are dying, which replaces the elements like the carbon in the space into the stars and planets. So the element related replacement and regeneration is being observed in this. Now there are two other terms apart from nebula that are being mentioned. First is regarding Cepheids. So basically Cepheids is the stars which brighten and dim periodically. So it is like jo bolte na taro ka timtimana. So sometimes the stars are like, once they are glowing, then after some time they are getting like low, and then they are high, then they are low. So they are basically Cepheids. And then next is pulsar. These are the rotating neutron stars. Just generally in the end of their lifestyle, they are rotating and we are seeing the pulsating aspect. There are pulse, and that's why they are pulsar. Next is regarding the regional rural banks or RRBs. What are regional rural bank? So basically they are established under the provisions of the Regional Rural Banks Act of 1976. These are the banks that are created with the collaboration of the Government of India, 50% stakes, then roughly state government 15% and the sponsor bank 35%. So it is collaboration of all three in this particular proportion. Now the Finance Ministry said that the regional rural bank will diversify their loan portfolio to enhance the credit flow. So in order to increase and diversify the loan portfolio, now they are going to disburse the more amount of loan. Now you can see the composition of this. Now they are regulated by both RBI and the NABARD. So regulated by RBI under the Banking Regulation Act of 1949, जिसमें generally scheduled bank भी govern किए जाते हैं schedule of the RBI में, schedule 2 में, right? Now supervised by the NABARD, right? Now it promote the agriculture, it promote the trade, commerce, industry, all these things it is promoting. Generally in the rural areas, but that's why they are the regional rural banks, right? Now mainly their task is to promote the priority sector lending. Priority sector lending may be the loan to the deprived sections, loan to certain small scale entrepreneur, loan to MSME. These particular things are generally part of the priority sector lending, and that's why the maximum percentage is being given in the priority sector lending. Next is regarding the coronal mass ejection. So basically these are the specific type of the material that is coming out of the corona of the sun, and generally when there is coronal mass ejection that is being observed, this is also going to impact the magnetic field of the earth. And that's why a recent study had shown that the subtle coronal mass ejection, even the small amount of coronal mass ejection, can trigger the intense geomagnetic storms on the earth. So larger expulsion of plasma and magnetic field, this is basically the coronal mass ejection. Apart from that, it can disturb the earth's magnetosphere, okay, causing the geomagnetic storms. Now often it's associated with the solar flares and the active sunspot region. So these are basically, you can assume that these are the storms that are available in the corona region of sun. When the mass is being ejected out of that, the mass travels the space and then that interact with the earth ka magnetic field, and that is going to impact that magnetic field. It can disrupt the satellites, it can disrupt the power grids, it can disrupt the navigation system, because navigation system is again dependent on satellites, radio communication, etc. Now next article is, or the last article is regarding the Arab League. So the external affairs minister met the Arab League ministers to strengthen the tie. What exactly is Arab League? Whenever UPSC is asking a question regarding an organization, generally that organization is there in news, and that's why UPSC is focusing upon that. So what exactly is Arab League? It is the intergovernmental regional organization of the Arab state. Now Arab states are basically including the northern part of the Africa and the West Asia region. So West Asia and the northern part of Africa, and they are basically formed in Cairo, which is in Egypt, right? And following the adoption of the Alexandria Protocol of 1944. Headquarter kahan par hai? Cairo, Egypt mein. Now what is the objective? Generally the organization ka objective is in order to strengthen the cooperation, politic, economic, cultural, social, right? And also regarding the security and the legal issues. They are cooperating because generally the ethnicity is similar type of ethnicity, right? Not much differentiated. Religion wise, but they are very close. Islam is the prominent religion, right? And that's why they are collaborating. How many members? There are roughly 22 members, and these countries are recognizing Palestine as a nation state, right? So Palestine is also part of that. Now other countries, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, these are the founding members of the Arab League, right? So with this, we have completed the news today articles discussion for 31st of January. I hope that whatever we have discussed is clear to you. Now try to answer the question, whatever questions we have tried to discuss, and try to again link that with the syllabus, because I have given you an idea. Now you can see the previous year question again, and then you can identify that how these particular discussions are going to be fruitful. Now whatever questions are on your screen, try to solve them, and then we will meet certain other discussion in future. Thank you everyone. Have a great day.